Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the FilmSpeak channel for another Falcon and the Winter Soldier Friday. We're breaking down the latest episodes of the MCU Marvel whatever TV series on Disney Plus. We're talking about episode number 4, which I believe is titled "The Whole World Is Watching." And yes, the whole world was definitely watching this episode, and especially at the end of it. But I'm, of course, your host, Griffin Schiller. And if this is your first time checking out the FilmSpeak channel, this is the place where we like to say the conversation continues after the credits. And of course, we'd love to have you be part of that conversation. So consider subscribing to the channel for more insight, analysis, and interviews behind your favorite entertainment. And if you're a regular, you know this, but if you aren't a regular, I am always joined by the great Elliott from Movie Files. Elliott, how's it going, man?
It's going good, man. We got 2 episodes left. We got some big stuff that went down this episode, and yeah, man, it's a fun time to be a Marvel fan because it's not to derail the conversation, but Marvel can give us an hour cut of Zemo dancing, and it takes 5 years to get a Snyder cut. So it's MCU, man. You gotta love it.
Now, if only they do that, but let us know what really happened with the rise of Skywalker.
Of course. Hey, Chris Terrio is on the tear, man. He's coming for you.
Let's go. I'm waiting for like 10 years from now when Terrio just spills the beans on what happens. It'll be great.
It's gonna be on Netflix.
Yeah, that thing needs to be a documentary. That's for sure. But guys, before we get started here, be sure to jump down to the comment section and let us know your thoughts on the episode. If you're watching it live, be sure to let us know your thoughts on this episode as well. Again, it's in the title, but I'm going to reiterate it here. This is a spoiler discussion, review, breakdown, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to be spoiling the episode. So if you haven't seen it yet, probably best to go watch the episode, then come back here. So there you go. There's your warning. All right, Elliott, let's get into this thing. What were your overall thoughts of this episode?
It was we talked about it last week on the live stream in regards to the continuation of Derek Colston having his last week's episode, continuing over the emotions and the stuff that we got. And honestly, man, seeing the John Walker stuff and the parallels of how it takes a good man to be Captain America, and not that John was a bad guy, but his mind wasn't in the right spot, man. It showed to me in this episode that Sam, obviously doesn't have the super serum. He has all his, motives and all that good stuff of why he doesn't want to take on the legacy and take on the shield. But I think the world needs Sam as Cap, as it shows in this episode, because of the serum, as the doctor told Cap, Steve in the first Avengers Captain America film. Yeah, you can get superpowers, but it's really who you are inside that represents the shield. So, I mean, seeing that transformation for John becoming, U.S. agent as we know him in the comics was a pretty big reveal, man. And all the other stuff, too, that we'll break down, Wakanda and Dora Milaje, and obviously stuff with Karli, which I actually liked. I'm not going to lie. The Flagsmashers had a little bit of a redemption for me this episode. But all in all, man, this is setting up to be hopefully a good conclusion.
I hope so. The one thing I'll say, and I'm mostly positive on this episode, again, it's just one of those things where it's like the stuff that I don't like about the episode, that I don't like about the series is still just really an issue in the show. But and I think one of the biggest things about it is that it's very scatterbrained. Like there's too many moving pieces in it in this show that you start to lose focus, and stuff isn't balanced the way that it should be. I mean, case in point, the Flagsmashers, the Flagsmashers, that stuff with Karli and all that stuff, we needed to have been building to that from the very beginning, not just giving it to us this episode. And I'll say the same for John Walker. Like we've gotten more of John Walker than I was anticipating, which I like, but we're starting to realize how integral to the story he is, and I feel like they've done a really good job of actually making him sympathetic up until when he obviously flips the switch and he goes down the path of being, I don't want to say he's a villain, but he's definitely like that anti-hero, which is
him and Karli on the same pathway, man. Yeah.
Which it's just sort of anyways, but with John Walker, I wanted more moments between him and Battlestar prior
Yeah.
to what happens where Battlestar gets killed, and then John Walker, who has taken the serum, goes crazy and like kills that flag smasher in cold blood in front of hundreds of people, which is really powerful scene. But again, like I feel like Battlestar, I keep forgetting his real, it's Lamar, right?
Or Lamar Hopkins, or
he as a character was done pretty dirty, because it just really he was just the thing that pushed
him
Walker
over the edge.
Over the edge. And I just don't like that, because there was more to him, right? They had a dynamic, we understood them. And I feel like, had we gotten more moments like what we got when they were like having coffee or whatever, where they're talking about like their time in Afghanistan. You know what, hell, this might be controversial, but if you give this show another episode, I would have loved to have seen a John Walker flashback where we see them in Afghanistan committing these atrocities, knowing that they're fighting for something that they don't necessarily believe in, but they have been told that is like, this is what you have to do. This is bravery. This is heroism. And they don't agree with that. So we see there that they're not bad, but they've done so many horrific things that it's just like they're questioning who they are. And it sort of like ties into John Walker's identity crisis a little bit in this, until he eventually becomes U.S. agent. And it's not that he wanted to become that person. It's just the serum amplified the negativity inside of him. And so while a great scene at the end, I didn't like that they killed Battlestar. It just felt like it was kind of bad optics, I'm not going to lie, in a show where it's like, trying to be progressive and whatnot. They kill the black sidekick to push the white guy into like the path that he's going to go on. And I was just sort of like, this is, we've seen this before. We're past this. We don't need Battlestar to die in order for John to go down this path here. And even still, I just wanted more of them prior to this moment. But Elliott, I guess just cutting to the chase here, how do you sort of feel about how that John Walker thing was handled?
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the double-edged sword with these Marvel shows. Obviously, we have 10 years of history with certain characters, and whenever you introduce, especially in a show with only 6 episodes, where it's not, John Walker and Battlestar, it's, Falcon and Winter Soldier. So there are going to be some casualties in regards to character development, and the stuff is on the script. They verbally tell us this stuff in regards to, we knew that was going to hit John hard very early when we first met John. Hell, who were the 2 most important people in his life that we meet? His wife, which I don't know if she'll ever appear again, but it was, Battlestar, having that moment with him. And like I said, the stuff is there. The ingredients are there. Same with the Flagsmashers. They give you all the stuff on the page. You tell the audience that, but you want to see it sometimes. Sometimes, the whole leaving it up to the imagination of the audience plays in some hands. In some cases, it doesn't. I totally agree with you that I think that this episode maybe would have benefited from opening up with John Walker in Afghanistan and maybe Battlestar saving him. And again, you just see that bond, and you see them having that relationship, and know how important it is, or how important Battlestar is to John. But again, right now they're just basing it off of, we said it in the script. We've had a couple scenes to show you kind of their relationship, but we don't really feel the relationship because we haven't spent that much time with them. Same could be said about Karli and the Flagsmashers, when she's randomly having good conversations with her counterparts, but it's just like, I don't know who you are, man. So this, you talking about your relationship with Captain America and your grandfather's, like, all this stuff is being said, but you don't see the stuff, and you would like to see it, as we've seen with Sam, as we've seen with Bucky over the last 10 years. So like I said, it is a hard thing to balance of the focusing on the stars and having their meaty moments. But then when you have the supporting characters kind of getting the short end of the stick, like Lamar, Battlestar, it kind of shows the flaws and kind of the limitness of this show.
Well, and I'm really glad that you brought up the fact that you wished that maybe like a flashback to Afghanistan was the beginning of the episode.
That would have helped.
I 1000% agree with you, because why was the flashback with Bucky and Wakanda how we started this episode? I understand. I get why they did it, because that's where we ended. So they want to sort of pick up and show like, Bucky's relationship with Wakanda and whatnot. But that wasn't the focus of the episode. Which is actually, here we go. Maybe another controversial opinion. I don't think that the Dora Milaje are even needed in this, because they're just used as a plot device, similarly to how Sharon last week was used as a plot device, and I didn't like what they did there. The Dora Milaje, they just sort of like say, okay, we want Zemo back in 8 hours, and obviously, yeah, they're going to try and put him back in prison, and it's probably not going to go down how they think. So why do we need the Dora Milaje in there to do that? And then they just come in to fight John Walker to beat him down even more so that he's like, I'm going to become the U.S. agent, like the Joker sort of thing. So, I don't know. Did you like how they were handled?
So there's obviously we know why they're there, and even Okoye said, or not Okoye, but Ayo says that in regards to, we're holding restraint. If there was another king in the chair, maybe things would played out differently in regards to execution to Zemo. But again, we know how T'Challa handled that situation, so there is a understanding of why this man represents the death of our king, and the fact that he's out on the streets, it does. Honestly, I'm actually a little bit reverse. If we didn't get them, I actually would kind of feel like, man, that kind of undercuts again what Civil War had, what Black Panther had in regards to him becoming the king, and again that moment that T'Challa and Zemo have on that mountain in regards to forgiving him for the sins of killing his father. I think that they having them implement in the show actually kind of does work for me. But again, I can understand when your sentiment in regards to just getting the cool moments as we would maybe expect an MCU of another action set piece. But I think thematically speaking, it does make sense that they would be there because it is like he's responsible for the death of their king, of their previous king.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair point. I think had it just been that first scene with Bucky at the beginning where they have that conversation, that would have been okay. But then them storming in and like trying to get Zemo, which it really just feels like a plot convenience because then Zemo escapes. John Walker is now like on his path to becoming a U.S. agent, and so. Yeah, it's just like that whole thing. It's just like, hey, okay, like you just disrupted everything, and now you just made things worse.
Again, paralleling to Civil War, it feels very similar to T'Challa's through line in that film. They had their Civil War. Bucky was the one that they were looking for, and now the tables have turned on Zemo. He's the one that the Dora Milaje is looking for. So there are some parallels, and there's a lot of parallels with John Walker in this episode, and parallels to the first Captain America film. So this is why I do appreciate the show in regards to the benefit of having 10 years prior to the show is you do get to kind of have those moments of like, hey, you guys have been on this journey. Hey, you remember that callback, kind of the parallels of someone else going through their perspective of the situation. So
yeah. No, absolutely. I think with speaking of the parallels, the way that like John Walker's character has sort of like mirrored like the beats that like Steve sort of went through to becoming Captain America and everything, just seeing how certain scenes were mirrored like that. Like obviously the Cap and like Tony fight is very reminiscent of like John killing the Flagsmasher here and whatnot, and just seeing how like Steve was always making the right decisions and John is never going on in that direction. I don't know, it is just like this interesting sort of like mirror image of it, which I think you could, like you were saying, I think you could say that for a lot of the stuff in the show. It is sort of like mirroring the Cap movies in some ways, which was pretty interesting. But so let's I guess let's talk about the Flagsmashers now, because this is the first real episode. Sorry, it's the first real episode, not the first real episode. It's the first real episode where we get
something
like,
from
stuff from the Flagsmashers.
100%.
And I loved everything that we got from them. I'm still struggling with the interpretation of them, and I understand this probably purposeful of the show. It's like, okay, are they heroes? Are they villains? For me personally, I feel like that's Marvel's way of not having to pick a side. You know what I'm saying? Like, because it's like Karli and the Flagsmashers are just like, they're not wrong. Like they're like you're trying to paint these guys as villains, and they're clearly not. Like they're just they're revolutionaries, and like when they talk about like what happened when the blip happened and how it like people came together, it was like a world community, and then when like the blip happened and then the rest of the world came back, that entire ecosystem was displaced. And actually I was thinking about this and I was like, that's really weird that the people who were living there were the ones that were displaced instead of
the people that come back.
The people that blipped back. I feel like the people who blipped back would have had like the problem,
the struggles of getting back to normalcy.
So I don't know, that I like now I finally felt like I had an understanding of what their cause was, even though I knew beforehand. It was just a more like well-rounded interpretation of that. But again, the show really, it won't commit, you know, like it keeps telling me, hey, they're the villains, and then it shows me scenes like this, and then it's like, you know, you have Sam in there, thank God, as like the voice of reason and like the moral compass, who is like leading more to that. So, and especially that scene, which we'll talk about in a minute, between him and Karli was beautiful. But yeah, I guess overall, what did you think about the way the Flagsmashers were handled this episode?
The group still hasn't come together to me. Like, again, I would have just been fine if it was just Karli's mission, and she would have had just maybe a couple people helping her out for the cause, like on different destinations, but not like, you know, this group of people that aren't really serving anything for me. But again, she has her followers and people that believe in her. But it's you know, it's Aaron Kellyman that's really kind of carrying that through line for me in regards to her performance, and there's a reason why they casted her too, because she looks like a, you know, someone you would believe in, and has the appearance of someone you want to follow, and she really kind of crushed it in this episode, man. Which we'll talk about the scene that she has with Sam, but just the stuff that she has with her counterpart at the graveyard regarding to how he views her as her Captain America. And then again, just the idea of him picking who he wants to be a hero. You represent who we are, you know, and we'll tie it to the end of this episode in regards to what we think will be the consequence of John Walker. But just in society, as you know, some of the stuff that we deal with in the real world, where there's policing going on in neighborhoods where the people don't feel like the police are representing their neighborhood. They're just people that's coming in, that's been given the shield, that knows nothing about the community. And that guy sees Karli as someone that's gone through the struggle, that's been there since the blip, has continued to try to push for the good cause. So it's a lot of good dialogue with the Flagsmashers, and particularly Karli in this episode, that really kind of hit home finally. Because literally before these previous 3 episodes, I'm just like, I could care less. Whenever we went to the Flagsmashers, it's like a waste of time. But this episode really kind of hit home their motives, their missions, and how they're viewed around the world, especially her counterparts.
Right. And it is interesting sort of how different people view them, like sort of like Zemo's very like regimented black or white interpretation of the world, and like he's talking about a world that is very gray. And I think like his him calling them like supremacists, or sort of like the concept of like supremacists, like those being people being radicalized, the super soldier serum being like a supremacist ideal. The thing I like about Zemo is that he's consistent, right? Like man. He's absolute, right? I mean, even though the interpretation of the character is still a little off from when we saw him in Civil War, the consistency of his mission, he doesn't take sides per se. I mean, Sam called him out a little bit on saying, well, then why are you using Bucky? And so there's something going on there for sure. But like, you know, he's steadfast in his mission, and it's probably what makes him the truest anti-hero of the show, because he doesn't take sides. He follows his own mantra, which he just lives fully by. And so I think this episode made me appreciate his character far more than it did last week, because I just understand who he is a bit more. And then, you know, Sam using that ideology to show Karli sort of like, this is how people are interpreting you right now, and we need to show them that this is not true, and that you are actually like fighting for something righteous.
Yeah, and the scene too that Sam has with Zemo regarding, and again, just acknowledging Zemo, you know, and I love how this show is really putting Captain America, who's my favorite Avenger, they're really building you up to what he stood for, because even Zemo and attest to it regarding, you know, the serum can have effects on you. They're on for a mission. You kill them or they kill you. You know, Steve never did that. Well, as Zemo says, well, there's a reason why there is not another Steve. He was so unique and so different. So I love that Zemo can actually acknowledge kind of what made Cap different, and the serum not necessarily giving you a definitive pathway. So again, I thought, like, I totally agree with you. You know, it was fun to get the dancing moments last week and kind of the funny jokes that we got with Zemo last week. But again, following through what that character believes in, and him being on a mission of making sure that there's no more super soldiers, which he was almost close to accomplishing his goal. But Mr. John Walker had some other plans.
Right. Of course. I do want to sort of go into that that graveyard scene where Karli and the other Flag Smasher, who sadly that was really actually pretty sad, like that he was the one who got killed by Captain America, because he was sort of talking about the fact that he used to love Steve, right? Like that idea, like someone like that represented the ideals that they fought for. And wasn't afraid to go against the government and stuff like that. That was really sad that he was killed by his former idol,
And he says too, before he dies, it wasn't me, it was, I didn't even put two and two together in regards to that. That was that, that same actor that had that moment, and kind of tying it back around to him having some hope in the Shield with Steve, and obviously having to look at Karli as Captain America, but literally seeing the real life version, and who the Captain America has been chosen, taking your life. So it does speak a lot to now that Shield, the legacy of the Shield, and there's blood on it, some innocent blood.
Right. Well, and then sort of what they were talking about, like he wants Captain America to represent him, right? Like they need, like, sort of what the show has been talking about this entire time, sort of like what Bucky has been trying to tell Sam this whole time, which is that symbol can be used for good, and it is something powerful that can inspire people. And Sam is also sort of like, but it doesn't represent me. It doesn't, like, we're still fighting for this. And if you put that in the hands of someone who represents these marginalized people and those who have been silenced for so long and whatnot, I feel like you're giving them a voice finally, right? You're saying that we hear you, and I think that ultimately that's going to be what pushes Sam over, because in this episode, Sam was more Captain America than we have ever seen him before. He was fighting 100%. With his words, his ideals. The fact that they called back to his time working at the VA,
I love that
helping
moment.
Veterans, like that's Captain America. That stuff right there was beautiful.
And I think it speaks to, again, his, we're still curious on why he doesn't want to take on the Shield. And I think you just hit the nail in the coffin there. It's not the Shield that represents the man. It's the man that represents the Shield, that holds the Shield. As we saw Cap literally give the Shield up in Civil War, because, as Tony tells him, my dad made that for you. Well, here, you can have it, because I don't represent, the Shield doesn't make me who I am. I'm Steve Rogers for being the hero I am. And I think Sam, that's kind of the same thing that Sam maybe sees, is just like that Shield is a symbol. I want to be the symbol. I don't necessarily have to hold something to represent who I am. Even Thor, even though he's the god of thunders, he doesn't need a hammer to be who he is. Exactly
where you're going is what I'm loving about these characters, and what I loved about the interpretations of Steve, of Thor, of Tony in Iron Man 3. The whole point was that it's not the suit, it's not the shield, it's not the hammer that makes them. They are what makes the hero.
Exactly.
And I think this right here is the story of Sam finding out that it's him that makes that shield what it is, not the other way around, which is what we're seeing with, like, John Walker and everything like that. So if they can stick that landing, then they might have won me over. Again, it's still a little murky just in terms of like what they're trying to convey from like a message standpoint. I get it in some regards, but then in other regards, it's like you're telling me one thing, you're showing me another, and I feel like you're too afraid to commit to one lane or the other. So I really do hope that is the eventual sort of like conclusion that wraps this whole thing up.
And I think it will be. Again, I think Sam's going to see more of himself as what he wants to represent, and the shield just happens to be something that kind of goes along with him. It's just kind of something to recognize, who's holding the shield is who's the person wielding the shield per se. But I think Sam's going to have what it represents. Yeah,
absolutely. I think just sort of going back to the Flagsmashers and Karli, that whole thing. While I love that scene between her and Sam, the scenes that follow, they sort of double down on her being I don't want to use the word terrorist, but they sort of like put her in that sort of mold. It's like she's now threatening Sam's family. It's like, is it an empty threat? Like, regardless, that doesn't, again, from the beginning, that doesn't seem like something that like Karli would do. And like knowing that this is like a righteous revolutionary group. I don't know. It's just sort of like the wishy-washiness of like how to view these characters.
And the only thing I fall back on, and again, just the the what the serum can do to the person, their true colors coming out. We see that with John Walker. And like you said, I don't think the show has necessarily made Karli a bad person, but she has made decisions, the means to get to her, accomplishment, killing the guys last week. And obviously, what happened in this episode with her killing, Battlestar, maybe that is her true colors, right? Maybe that deep down inside her, again, this animosity, where she's come from, this is really who she is. She's a great character, but I think my only excuse is, like I said, the serum really kind of bringing out the true nature of this character, that she's willing to, like a Punisher, willing to kill if it takes that to kind of take out the people she deems as the villains, per se, in her eyes.
Yeah, for sure. And I think with Battlestar, there was something about that reaction to her killing him, right? That sort of like showed me that there is still something in there, that she's not fully committed to being like this villain that the show keeps painting her as. Which, I feel like, had she officially crossed that line like Walker did, she would have showed like no remorse at it. And clearly she did not want to kill him. But I don't know. But then again, like earlier in the episode, they're talking about the fact that like maybe they do need to kill that new Captain America in order to be taken seriously, or something like that.
Yes, she was willing to kill. She had the knife and was willing to kill John Walker then and there. So yeah, I mean, again, I think it shows. And we haven't spent that much time with her. That makes it so hard. We're kind of, is she good? Is she bad? We haven't had that kind of moment to kind of really define her character. So it is kind of murky waters, but I think there's enough evidence there to show you what she's truly about. If she has the opportunity to take out someone she feels is a threat, she's going to take them out, and not knock them out. She's going to kill them.
Right. Again, it's just sort of like how the show wants us to view them. I'm really struggling with. I don't think, like, had this been the first time that she killed someone, accidental, that would have been great, because I think her reaction to doing that shows that like she's all talk and she would never actually go through with those things because she has a conscience.
Yeah.
The fact that she blew up a building full of people and then like was threatening Sam's family, it just feels like that feels so out of character to like her core beliefs and everything. Like I don't know, again, just weird sort of interpretations from the show.
Yeah, I think, again, it plays into the fact that I think Aaron, just naturally looking at her, you just seem like you just want to follow her. She's going to make the right choices. Right. And again, I think that's perfect casting for that character, because you see the goodness and she says all the right things, but deep down, she's showing that she has this side to take that extra step to take out these people in cold blood, which she's done 2 weeks in a row now.
Yeah, right, for sure. So I guess she has...
She's gone. She's on the dark side, man. She can't.
I guess, but again, that's so stupid, because it's like they're not, like, their cause is not.
Hey, she's
wrong.
an extremist, man. I hear you, and again, it shows you, and I think that's kind of the parallels and kind of the deep rootedness of this show regarding when someone, and that's what makes great villains. It always makes a great villain. They always think they're right, and Karli thinks she's doing the right thing, even though she's killing people, which is no resort of whatever your means are. There's no reasons to taking someone's life. But again, that makes the villain so great. She sees herself as the hero. She sees herself as Captain America, as her colleague told her in this episode. But she's going about it a much different way than Cap would.
Well, 100%. Well, and like for her, I mean, she says like today's heroes don't have the luxury of keeping their hands clean, which I think was even something that like Steve had to learn when he was readapting to the world. It's like there were sacrifices he sort of had to make. I mean, he never crossed certain lines, but it was sort of interesting. So I mean, just given her and her interpretation of that, I do think that's an interesting thing to pose. But I guess before we start to wrap this up, was there any final things that you wanted to touch on specifically?
No, again, I think we hit on the big point, seeing Sam's really, becoming the Captain America that the world needs. Seeing Bucky and his beginnings, still getting more of his development. Who knows where Zemo's going to head off to next. There's still something to be said about Sharon Carter, man, with her resources. She has goons to her disposal. She has satellites.
Yeah. And that's the power broker.
Power broker. Yeah, man. There's something to be said about that connection there, and apparently, again, the rumor is next week's supposed to have some big character that Malcolm Spellman, it's going to be Vision coming back. But no, I think the Power Broker is going to probably be the overarching villain that they'll probably have continue on through maybe movies and shows. But I think it's something to look forward to next week. And will there still be the Dora Milaje in the mix?
That's
I guess the biggest thing to kind of address is the possibilities of John Walker after his actions of killing that man in cold blood for the world to see. Will there be the path of him taking, the shield being taken from him? I don't think he's going to jail or whatnot, or is it going to be playing really into the reality we live in? We see all the time people capture, police force doing, injustices, but yet they get off the hook. So will we see?
I think that's
get off the hook next week?
Because that scene was very, very, very just intentionally designed to be sort of like a police officer caught in the act doing the things that they shouldn't be, and even to the point where it's like he was like avenging one of his comrades. I mean, that's like something that you would see on like in like the news or with like the police force and stuff like that. If one of their brothers in arms is wronged or whatever, they're gonna come after you and they don't really give a shit. And I think that was really well handled there. I think I'm really curious to see what happens with John Walker for sure. I'm even more curious to see if he's gonna like fully go into that like U.S. agent sort of territory. That would be. I think that's obviously where he's heading. But just all the stuff you were sort of like just mentioning about like the Power Broker is gonna come in. It's like what's going on with him, and then the Dora Milaje, and then Zemo's plot. It feels like this season is like a 3-film arc for Sam, for like the Sam Wilson Captain America, and perhaps this would have worked better as a movie. Season 1, we deal with, or not season 1, but like the first film, we deal with Sam giving up the shield, and then like Walker getting it, and like all this stuff that sort of happens with him. Season 2, maybe the Flagsmashers, or not season 2, the second film, the Flagsmashers and whatever, and then the third film, obviously the resolution for that. And like these guys are like good enough to get their own movie. I'm just not sure that they're just trying to cram so much into one season of television that perhaps I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work with 2 episodes left. I don't know.
I think this might be, even though they haven't flat out said, I think they did say that this show there will be connections to other shows, as we kind of theorize, probably Secret Invasions, which another thing, Rhodey, is Rhodey going to come back in the mix somehow, some way?
Well, is Isaiah going to come back?
Is Isaiah and Eli Bradley? So there's still, and I think what you just said, I think this, unfortunately, and fortunately to Marvel's benefit, this might be the prequel to Captain America 4, as Sam being the actual Captain America. And this is just setting all the groundworks for an actual film, which again, as audience members, we want to see all the groundwork and what we're currently watching now. But Marvel, they are all about the setup, so they're just wilding up the pitch, getting the warm-ups out of the way before the big game. So I think that's what this show is the warm-ups before the big Captain America 4 movie eventually coming. Probably by the end of this show, we'll get the announcement.
You're probably right. I just don't like that. I feel like that's kind of a lazy way out. But nevertheless, it's what they've done forever, I guess. But I almost feel like but with the TV shows, they've almost like taken more liberties with it. It's like, well, okay, so it's okay if we don't like tie up everything in here. We're just gonna go and do it in another project. And I'm just like, well, no, tie up everything in this story and then continue that off.
Hey man, Kevin Feige might be we talk about Karli being a revolutionary. Maybe this is Kevin Feige revising how we watch television. Literally, these are mini prelude movies before we go into the big event. And in 10 years, we're going to be like, oh, why don't we have the show and then lead into the movie? Because Kevin Feige and Marvel did it so well. So I think we might be seeing history in front of our eyes.
For sure. Well, anyways, guys, that's going to do it from us again. Be sure to let us know your thoughts and opinions on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode number 4 down in the comment section below. Thank you so much to those of you who joined into the chat live. It was great seeing the points you made in there. And if you want to watch us live again, we'll be back next Friday for episode number 5, breaking down that whole thing and talking about it. But until then, Elliott, where can everyone find you?
Hey man, as I always say, it's always a pleasure, Griffin. By the way, congrats on the 14K, my friend. Well
Thank you.
deserved.
Thank you.
Killing it on the video essays, these discussions that we have on a weekly basis. So congratulations to you, my friend. But as far as me guys, check me out on YouTube. A lot of stuff in the last 24 hours. A lot of stuff I've been watching. I got the Them series coming out later today. Invincible episode 5. Some really Voyagers. Thunder Force. It was a wild last 24 hours, but nonetheless, check out all that content, and you guys can find me on Instagram at Movie Files and on Twitter at Movie Files Live.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely go give him a follow, especially with tomorrow, his Marvel, talk show that he does every Saturday. I'm sure they'll break down this episode even more over there. But lastly, guys, if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right. That is going to do it for this review breakdown of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode number 4. And we will catch you back here next week. Take care.